All right, what do you say we go outside the box? So this is a segment that I have on my QB Confidential website where I kind of go off the field. I've got a lot of things where I break down the X's and O's, and you guys can find that anywhere. But this is more of the TED Talk podcast-esque type segment where I can dive into subjects and topics that relate to playing the game, being a quarterback, leadership, all of those different things a little bit more in depth because I don't have that platform, that show that I'm on every single day to dive into kind of some of the hot topics or things that we've been discussing on social media. So I've been talking a lot about this idea of, I got benched by every professional team that I ever played for. And, what that can do to a person's psyche and how you can look at a situation like that. And also the fact that not everybody sees you how you are or sees you at your best, or every situation set up for you to succeed and play to your strengths. And so was benched every place I was in professional football. Some was just for a game. Some was for a season. Some was cut and released. My story is well documented in that regard. But in talking about that, a lot of people are going to ask me, okay, how did you keep the faith? How did you keep the belief in yourself? How did you know that you could still play at a high level? And I just had somebody actually tweet me today that teaches a class and asked me if I could fill in the gap on how you know as an individual and believe in yourself as an individual, but make sure that that belief isn't delusional and it's based on reality. And it's a great question because there was a long time there when things were going my direction and I was working in a grocery store. And I even had people really close to me that would kind of look at me like, are you sure you're good enough to play? Like, are you sure you've got the talent that you think you have? Because otherwise, why are you here? Why did you sit on the bench for 4 years in college? I mean, are you just being delusional with, your skill set and your belief in who you are? And so to answer that question, I always felt like there was two aspects to it. The first was I always had to be realistic with why I was believing what I was believing. Like I always had to make sure that I stepped back and was looking at things realistically. I've been mentioning a lot about how it's so easy to explain away different things. And I'll just use a football analogy. It's very easy for me to go and play a game and throw a couple interceptions and in my mind know why I threw those interceptions. But then to go and watch the film and after watching the film go, well, I could say that I threw the interception because this happened, or I see something else on film that I wasn't really aware of in the game that could be a reason why I threw the interception, even though I know it wasn't the reason why I threw the interception. But it would be easy to explain that away. I say the same thing about coaching, right? It's so easy to go and watch the film after the fact and tell a player, well, you should have done this, instead of really just looking at the scenario that played out and go, you know what? I completely understand why they did that. Or I understand off of our teaching why he might think that. Now let's coach him and teach him differently instead of just saying, oh, you threw an interception there. You should have done this. And so that to me is the delusional part of it, is when you're going into a situation and you're not realistically looking at all the factors. You're not looking at yourself realistically and going, why did I really throw that interception? You know exactly why you threw it. Don't try to explain it away. Take that, learn from it, get better so it doesn't happen again. And so that's the delusional. The first part of the delusional argument is I've got to make sure that I'm grounded in reality. That if I'm sitting on the bench for 4 years, why am I sitting on the bench for 4 years? There's got to be a reason that the coaches don't trust me to go in and play. There's got to be something that I'm doing. And again, it could be other factors. They don't really like me and I don't fit their style. That could be true. But I always want to make sure that I'm realistically looking at every situation to see, is there something that I'm doing? Is there something based in reality that I'm trying to explain away or I'm trying to avoid and not address that's really causing these issues. And so to me, belief starts there. It starts with grounding yourself in reality and going, this is who I am, this is who I'm not. What other people say that I am, is that based in truth, or is there some fallacies there? What I say I am, is that based on truth, or is there some fallacies there? And so that realistic viewpoint of life is so important, I think, to hold on to belief, because you have to know who you are. You have to know the why. And if I could put myself realistically into every situation and say, okay, this is why I did it. This is why I'm having success. Okay, somebody's criticizing me. Somebody's saying I should have done something different. I can realistically go into that situation and say, no way, they're full of it. They're just making something up that's not based on facts, not based on the way I was taught or the way I was coached or the way we discussed it or the fact that maybe we never discussed that situation. So how was I supposed to know what a coach wanted me to do or what the options were if we've never discussed those things? So that reality-based viewpoint of life is very, very important. And then the second thing to me that was really important in when I was getting benched, when I was sitting on the bench, when I was working in a grocery store, and people ask me all the time, how did you know? How did you keep believing that you were successful? So the second piece for me was I always had to hang on to the things that had happened in my life, the experiences that had happened in my life. So a lot of people can associate my story with the story of David and Goliath, right? Here's David, the guy that comes out of nowhere and takes down the giant and accomplishes this great feat. A lot of people would look at my story, say the same thing, being on the bench, working in a grocery store, playing arena football, and then coming into the NFL and winning a couple MVPs and going to a couple Super Bowls and getting into the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's like a David and Goliath story. And so when I go back and read that biblical story, the part that jumps out to me and the most impactful part to me is a scene where David is actually having a conversation with King Saul. And King Saul is looking at this young shepherd boy that just showed up on the battlefield to deliver something to his brothers. He's not trained in taking down Goliath or fighting a battle. And King Saul looks at him and goes, okay, why do you think, he's already volunteered to go and fight Goliath one-on-one. And he's like, why do you think that you can take down Goliath? Why do you think you have the skills? Why do you believe that when all of these other trained warriors are afraid to go up against Goliath, why do you believe that you can go up and defeat him? And I love what he said, because he said, okay, basically, King Saul, what you don't know about me is that my entire life I've been a shepherd. And so I've been responsible for a flock, of sheep my entire life. And over the time that I've been a shepherd, from the time I was young to now, I've been faced with a lot of different challenges. A lot of different giants, so to speak, have come to try to steal my flock. Whether it was a lion or a bear or a wolf, I've had those giants come in and try to take over. And every single time that one of those giants has appeared, my job was to defend my flock from those giants and keep them safe. And every single time one of those giants has shown up in my life, I've defeated that giant. And so here I am, and yeah, this giant may be a little bit bigger than the giants that I've faced in the past, but I only know one thing. I only know that when I'm faced with these situations, that I believe I'm going to be successful because I've always been successful. So when people ask me about my journey, and most people look at the things that have a little relevance to me. They look at the fact that I sat on the bench for 4 years. They look at the fact that I had to work in a grocery store. They look at the fact that I got cut by my first NFL team and I had to play in arena football. And those are all the reasons why I'm not going to be successful in the NFL. For me, all I looked at when I was building this belief or continuing to sustain myself with that belief in what I was capable of was I looked at all the times I was between the lines with the ball in my hands. So I only got to play 1 year in college. But that 1 year, I was the player of the year in our conference. We won our conference and I led our team to the playoffs. I played arena football for 3 seasons. When I played arena football, we went to the Arena Bowl 2 times out of my 3 years, and I was the best quarterback in the league during my time in the Arena Football League. I played 1 year in Europe. That 1 year in Europe, I led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns in that one season. So I was like David saying, these are my experiences. When I'm playing football, when I'm here to defend my flock, every single time I've been faced with one of those situations, I've been successful. And so when we talk about being delusional or basing your belief, your faith in yourself on reality, that to me is what you have to do, is you have to look at your experiences and say, what do my experiences say to me? What do the opportunities I've been given say to me? And those opportunities always said, when you have the ball in your hands, you're as good as anybody that's played at whatever level you've been in. When you have to defend your flock, you have always done it, to the point of saving your flock, or, at a successful level every time you've been asked to do it. And so when David looked back at Saul, he said, this is why I believe. There's no reason for me not to believe. Yes, you can look at me and say I'm just a shepherd boy. And you can look at me and say, oh, I'm not trained in being able to fight in this manner. You can look at me and say I'm too small because he's too big. You can look at all of those factors. Those factors have no relevance to me, because those factors don't determine, have never determined the success that I've been able to have. And so when you ask me, how do you fight the idea of being delusional and believing something about yourself that's not factual, and having a true belief and faith in things that are grounded and experiences that have played out in your life, that to me becomes the key, is having a basis for reality, being able to see life for what it is and not try to excuse anything away. And then the second part is to base your life and your belief on what you have accomplished, the experiences that you have been in, what you've shown yourself to be time and time and time again. So when I got to the NFL, yes, the giant was bigger, the talent I was facing was greater, but I only knew one thing. I had always been successful. So I will be successful again, because I know who I am. I know the gifts and talents that I do have. And even when other people couldn't see it, even when other people had an excuse on why I couldn't, what I knew about myself was based on that reality and that experience. And that's what would always carry me. Every time I stepped on the football field, that would be my reality. That would be where my faith came from. That would be where the belief came from, because I've been here and I've done it, and I've done it over and over again. So I knew exactly who I was. Even when other people were looking at me and telling me I was somebody different, I had to be somebody different because of those weird experiences that I dealt with outside of the playing field. All I can say is they were looking at the wrong things. I was looking at who I was as a football player, and I had the evidence to prove, the evidence to sustain my belief in who I was. So I never believed it was delusional. I thought the delusional part was all these people that are looking at it the wrong way. They're looking at the wrong things. Just because I'm sitting on the bench doesn't mean I can't play. Just because I got cut from my first NFL team and had to work in a grocery store does not mean I can't play. They're not, connected in that regard. That just because you work in a grocery store doesn't mean you can't play football. It simply had to do with opportunity. But when those opportunities came, I continually proved that I could be successful. I continually proved to myself who I was as a football player. So anytime you were going to give me a ball and put me between the lines, no matter what the level was, I fully believed I was going to be successful.